Special Committee Council meeting to order of November the 16th. First line call for roll call.
No, it's just
Not
a
yet.
committee meeting.
Streets and sidewalks, Mr. Story is absent tonight, so Ms. Wallach, will you?
Okay, Jim, take it away.
That was easy.
Thank you. Let's see if this is close enough. Is that working? Okay. Good evening. Thank you for the time. I'm going to just go over some of the projects that we did this year. It was a challenging year, I just want to say. Unplanned things came up, some outside of our control. Inflation was a big issue. Supply chain issues was a big issue. You've heard about those things already from Melanie on the admin building. That affected many of our projects that were being done and moving forward. But then also we had some noticeable sort of old age issues come up in our infrastructure. So,
Just watch it.
yeah.
Careful.
Understood. Understood. We're seasoned. That's the good way of putting it. So, so the first few jobs we're going to look at are involved with our sewer fund. We've talked over the last 4 years about the challenges that we have at the water reclamation facility and all the work that needs to be done. This year we bid and awarded the final clarifiers, which is the 4 circular tanks you see pointed to by the arrow. We already finished one of the primary clarifiers a couple years ago. And so what we're doing right now is we're going through the wastewater plant one process at a time and basically gutting it and rehabilitating it. The good news is we don't have to increase the capacity of the facility. We just have to basically get it all in better working conditions. So the clarifiers, this work is going to actually be constructed in 2023. Right now, the contractor is going through some of the specially designed equipment and then getting it manufactured. So basically what we're doing is taking out every mechanical electrical part in these 60-foot diameter tanks, replacing them with new parts, and then getting them back in service. And there's 4 of those tanks, and it costs about $3.1 million. And this one we were able to get it funded through a combination of state grants through the Ohio Public Works Commission, the state ARPA funds that came through, and then our local ARPA funds to finish it all. So, another project in the sewer realm is the pump station on Middlebury Road. It doesn't look like much of a big building, but it's an expensive building. About $2 million between the pump station and the sanitary sewer. That was constructed to help eliminate another pump station at Yakavona eventually. I will say that it's not a text or a spelling error under issues. Marl is a soil type that is extremely hard. Actually, it has no strength to build on, and unfortunately we encountered that during the construction of the sanitary sewer, so we're dealing with that issue. But this is another project that had significant delays. It was originally supposed to be done in April or May, but with supply chain issues for generators, transfer switches, it's pushed the project back. We're right now in the middle of the startup process, so we got numerous reasonable calls and questions about why are those pumps still sitting out there and what's taking so long to finish this job. Unfortunately, it had another impact in that it held off us paving Middlebury Road. If you've driven down Middlebury Road, you know it was in very bad condition, and it was in very bad condition for several years. But the pump station project was digging up along Middlebury Road, and we didn't want to ruin the pavement, so we kept pushing it back until the project was done. So the pump station now is done with most of the excavation, so we were able to pave Middlebury Road. It started in October and ended in November. I think we caught the second to last good day when they put the final course of asphalt down. And this one was, again, partially funded by OPWC. So we actually got a lot of street work done this year. Middlebury Road's one, and then we had our typical milling and resurfacing program. You see, we did several residential streets in full milling and resurfacing, as well as finally getting to Alley number 2 and alley number 1 got done. Those were always a challenge for us since they hold such small amounts of traffic, really getting to those ahead of some of the other streets. But we're happy to say we're able to get those finished. And then doing pavement repairs on some of the other more chip seal streets. And the construction cost, you see, is about the same amount as we did for Middlebury Road. Unfortunately, what we're hearing right now is we're starting to hear concerns over getting asphalt now. And now we're not just talking about the winter, we're talking about coming next spring that asphalt might be rationed like concrete was being rationed this year. So,
You gotta get the cost up.
what was that?
The stall out to get the cost up.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't say anything.
Oh, I can.
I wanna
How
go.
come this downtown's not on that? Is that the next slide?
Almost 2 slides from
Okay.
now.
I was gonna say, that's resurfacing. and-
Yeah.
right,
Mhm.
Old asphalt,
Yeah,
don't you
they
do?
do.
Can you ask
Do
them?
they do take the old asphalt and reuse it though, don't they?
Mhm.
In most cases?
Yes.
Good,
Mhm.
okay.
Tracy?
Jim, on some of the rebuilds and improvements of the water and the sewer plants and that, just out of curiosity, are they using brushless motors now and DC drive motors for any of that equipment?
You know, actually, I wouldn't be able to answer that. I'd have to go back and take a look at it. So, but I'll get back to you on that.
Be interested in,
Mhm.
just the longevity seems to be much better in the operating cost. I just don't know where they stop as far as sizing.
What's that?
Yeah. we definitely-
No, he was asking more about DC motors. That's okay. Um, Yes, there's a continual improvements to equipment that's being done, and each project that we do, our designers are looking at what's current, not just the designers, but also our plant operators, because we have certain types of motors and certain types of valves and other things that we can work on and manage and maintain, so we'd like to keep it with those. And we have our own experience, the managers do, on what works really well and what doesn't. So those all come into play when the equipment's being spec'd out. So, in addition to the paving we already showed, we don't just we don't just pave streets. We also fix the sidewalks and concrete work. Typically, that work is done a year ahead of the streets being paved. So this year's program, we did 3 streets: South Prospect, Sherman, and in total, and then Kevin Drive, a portion of it. And as you can see, $620,000 basically did 2.5 blocks. Now, I will tell you that South Prospect and Sherman, if you've been down Sherman Street before, any time in the last dozen years, Sherman Street needed not just repairs, it needed probably 80 to 90% of the sidewalk was done, 80 to 90% of the curb was done. So they were in bad condition, but still $620,000 for those 3 streets is a lot of money moving forward. So,
Mr. Hell, we get some curbs.
but now, Mike, the main and water resurfacing. So this actually represented one of the things that we had to adapt and change to, because in 2021, AMATS came out with a supplemental grant program to resurface streets, and we submitted main and water resurfacing, and we were able to get that. The caveat was that we had to have it done and bid in like 8 months. So that changed our planning and our scheduling, because you don't want to turn down $750,000 to help get the streets taken care of, because otherwise, if we had to do these streets without a grant, we wouldn't have we wouldn't have a program that would able to be doing residential streets. So when we get grants to do Middlebury's and these main streets, that helps us allow us to do the smaller streets and the alleys and the Woodhills and the Francises. So this one here, some of the issues that we had because of where it was at, we did something new with our communications, sort of building off what we did with North Water Street, where we sent out daily email updates to property owners and businesses. That also got picked up by Patty. She then sent out updates on Facebook and Twitter, trying to let people know. It was mostly successful. I'll be honest, we're learning, we're trying to get better. Unfortunately, we missed a couple businesses. One, unfortunately, was Pops right here, and another was a medical office, and it's like, so we're sorry. We keep trying to get better when we do that, but we want to try to improve communication. We still think, we still believe that's the way to go, to let people know what's going on, because it's the uncertainty and the unknown that seems to be most bothersome, as people don't know what's going on with the construction. So, now, some of the negative things that affected this year's planning, April 24th, the Fairchild Avenue Water Tower failed, as you know. I can say that it's now back online as of 2 o'clock today. So back in service finally. And one of the major things that held it up was supply chain issues. We had to get what's called an altitude valve, and we ordered it in May and got it at the beginning of November. So the pictures in the top right are some of the damage that happened to the tower. The topmost picture shows the undermining under the foundation. The picture to the right was the pipe's connection to the actual part of the tower that holds water. And then underneath it is a 12-inch pipe that was separated, where the pipe goes underneath the foundation in this chase and then turns and goes up to the tower. You can see that was totally separated at some point in the failure process. So the challenges of this, besides the supply chain issue, if you see the picture on the bottom left corner, that's the access to the work area. It's a small man door that's about up to my chest to get in and out of. It was a difficult time, but again, it's back in service. We started working on the repair the day after we found that it happened, and we're glad to have it back in service.
Mike?
Is there a inspection that's going to be going on most of these now, or there was probably, but a little bit more looking at these? I know that was covered with insulation too, a lot of this stuff, wasn't it?
Well, yes, there's inspections that happen. We have people in the tanks every week from the plant.
I see 'em, yeah.
So we're still uncertain. You said, what was the first cause of the failure of the tower? The most likely scenario or hypothesis is in the pipes coming under the chase might have developed a leak. When it developed a leak, it saturated the sand that was in the center of the tower, and then the thrust blocking that sits on the sand then would have failed, and then the bar that keeps the pipe from separating, that's up against the foundation, actually it went down and went underneath the foundation, and then it separated. So the pipe at the top, which is under the insulation at the top right, Mike, that actually didn't break at a joint. It broke the pipe itself, and after the pipe was brought down, it did not have any section loss. It was actually in good condition. So that didn't lead us to believe, Mike, that it was a corrosion issue in the pipe underneath the insulation. So we're working at right now trying to determine what potentially could have caused that pipe to separate in the pipe chase, and we think we have some ideas on what that is, and we're working on trying to prevent that from happening. So, and those actual prevention steps were put into place in the end of August, and they seem to be working at the moment. So while Fairchild Avenue Tower was down, we had just awarded a contract to a contractor to paint one of our other towers. There's 4 towers up on Summit Street by Hillel Jewish Center. We were still able to, while Fairchild Avenue Tower was down, we're still able to empty this tower, paint it, and then put it back in service. And even something like that, it's a $400,000 expense to paint one tower. And considering we typically have about $800,000 to $900,000 for capital work in the water fund, that basically uses up half of our available money to get that done. And we have 6 towers in the city, all in different states of needing painted. As Dave would tell you before about sidewalks, you need sort of, like an aircraft carrier, you start painting one side and you just keep going around till you get done. When we get to the water towers, we finish painting one, a couple years later we got to do another, a couple years later we got to do another, and by the time we get done with those, it's 15 years later, you're doing it again. So that's a fairly significant expense to get those completed. Another,
Hey, Jim.
Tracy,
yeah,
John's got.
Sorry.
John's got a question.
John?
How tall is that tower?
How many pieces?
Roughly?
let me, sure, no problem. That one there,
Yeah.
I believe the actual usable height in it's about 35 feet.
And that cost $400,000 to paint it. Is there some specialty paint or?
Yes, specialty paint, and then just the process you need to by working next, it's, in the end, that's chlorinated water inside that people drink. So not only the painting process, but the cleaning process after it's done, the chlorinating after it's done, all takes more time and effort. And then like anything, like when you see on a bridge deck being done, if you're driving down the highway and you see where they tent everything off, they had to tent everything off there as they sandblasted it inside and outside. There also was some minor work done required by the EPA to disconnect an overflow so that it wouldn't spill out potentially into a sewer. So,
I guess the reason that kind of shocked me is because we just got done painting 2 6-story buildings and a 3-story building with 300 or 400 residents, and it was $350,000. And they trimming windows and,
yep.
and it's a.
Yeah. I'm sorry I didn't put some of the pictures from the inside of it where they painted, because every piece of equipment in there is coated.
They painted inside also.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They need summer help, John, if you want to help.
Hey,
They need summer help if you're looking for a summer job.
I might be, yeah. I get a new knee next month, I'll be able to move a little better.
Seems to be going down.
Another unexpected thing that happened this year, in the middle to late summer, we got word that there were some residents on Riverside Court. Riverside Court's a small dead-end street off of North Manaway Street, who had very low water pressure. And then it was to the point where we couldn't let it be like that through winter for fear of freezing in the lines, not only in the houses, but also going to those houses. So we organized and did an in-house design. Central Maintenance ended up managing it. They used a local contractor to facilitate, to help their crews out. Helmling Construction came in, and we replaced the 2-inch line that went down the street. Central Maintenance paved it. They bought all the materials, and we're able to get that done here, and it finished up last week. And in the construction of it, what we found was that the sanitary sewer that was there was actually not flowing to our system. It was actually flowing to the river. It didn't actually get exposed. It had an open end and ran into the dirt, which, if you stop and think about it, Riverside Court is on maps dating back to 1874. They didn't have treatment plants back in 1874, but they still had to get rid of the sewage in their area. So when we found that, of course, we had to then fix that and get it so that it does drain to our system. So this job was actually in the capital plan for some out year, 3 or 4 years from now. But like I said, we had to adjust what we were working on to make sure this got taken care of.
Our Manaway Street house did that. It went under 43 across the thing, and then the river, and then when the excavator moved a pile of dirt, he blocked the end of it. And that was interesting.
Yep. And these things don't, if it's one house or 2 houses connected, they don't show up right away. It almost works as a septic system or a French drain.
100 years, yeah.
Yeah. Another issue in the water system that had to be dealt with earlier this year, this was actually in the capital plan for 2022, but it was going to be done later. The restoration of well number 9. Now, we have actually 4 raw water wells that pull water up from the ground that get pumped to the treatment plant to get treated. Earlier this year in June, well number 12 failed, stopped working, and it was one of our main producing wells. So if we'd lost another well before that got up and running, we would have had to have taken water from Ravenna or Akron to supply water to the residents. So we started expediting. So first of all, well number 12 was repaired as best it could be. It now produces half of what it used to. And now we're trying to get well number 9 back online as soon as possible. It should be up and running by March, and part of the reason that it's taking longer than we want is supply chain issues, ordering pumps and other things. So this just makes a challenging environment, not just in 2022, but also in planning and the recommendations in the capital plan moving forward in 2023. So we see part of the solution to continue to be able to get stuff done and make progress would be in partnerships. We already came to you back twice at the end of the year, and we appreciate the approval to working with PARTA and Franklin Township for 59, Davy Tree, and Kent City Schools for 43. We're already working with Kent State and PARTA on East Main Street. We're also in discussions right now with the Summit Metro Parks, the Portage County Engineers, and the City of Akron for potential joint projects that would benefit both or those multiple entities. So we're working on that. That would be more in the future when those get done, but we'll bring those to you coming up here sometime next year. So in planning for, well, in the key endeavors next year, the street and sidewalk program, and unfortunately for the first time in 5 or 6 years, we have to recommend a smaller street and sidewalk program than what we would typically want, just due to the inflationary costs. So like everything in the capital plan that was sort of planned for 2023 got a 20 to 25% bump. Well, there's not 20 to 25% more money available, so certain things had to be reduced to make that happen, and that was done across the board in all departments, but still, the street sidewalk program, one of the ones that we try not to touch ever, had to be reduced some to make a balanced a budget that was fiscally responsible. ODOT was going to resurface 43 at the end of this year, but the timing didn't work out for them, so it's already been awarded to a contractor. They're going to start in the spring. That's pretty much 43 from Haymaker Parkway north to the city limits. Again, still working on the water reclamation facility, not just the clarifiers, but also going out to bid and starting heat digesters. That's another process. This is a process that actually reclaims the energy in the treatment process and then puts it back into the plant so that we don't take as much energy use to run it. So that's a $5 to $6 million project, so it's another significant one. And then the next one is a water main that was supposed to have been done this year, but we had to push it off because of all the other problems that had come up. So it was a challenging year. I'm very appreciative of everybody in our staff and the treatment plants who were flexible and adaptable to helping make changes to deal with what needs to be done. And council, I mean, you guys saw numerous appropriation change requests for the water fund as the year progressed as we're trying to deal with these. So, but hopefully this doesn't last long and we can get back to work more like normal in the future. So,
Good luck.
thank you.
Any questions for Jim? Okay, thank you. No action, right?
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
So now we're going to go right into the other part, right? Capital improvement, what we're going to do this year, right?
Yep.
That's still done?
Nope.
Ah.
It's Rhonda.
Rhonda doesn't use the fancy stuff, do you?
I don't. You have it in front of you.
Oh, I know.
Okay, Finance Committee,
Right,
go.
it doesn't hurt my neck.
Yeah, anytime you're ready, I
Okay.
guess.
So in the budget books, which we passed out to you, I want to say it was last week, if you start, since the first few pages are just the summary of how the year went, some of the projects that we worked on. And then the few pages after that are all of the projects for 22, 23, and so forth. If you actually start on page 33, that's where I'm going to start. Go to page 33.
What page?
33.
33?
So 33 is the analysis of the water fund. You'll notice at the beginning of 2023, if you notice the beginning of 2023, we start with a beginning balance of a little over $2 million. And then starting in 2024, you'll notice also that the fund balance has gone in the red. That's because we have many projects. You see $3.1 million of projects, but there's not enough funds and or grants, and there's usually not a lot of grants for water funds. There's not enough money to cover these costs, so that's why our fund balance is going to be in the red in 2024. It is imperative that we have you think about a large increase for water and sewer rates because of some of these issues. We also couldn't put some of the projects in the plan because they're in the planning stages, and you'll see that in the sewer fund as well. And we don't have amounts to actually include in here yet. On page 34.
Can I say,
yeah.
just a quick preamble that I usually do, but I didn't do tonight because you all have been through this so many times. But I just want to remind you, the main focus, Rhonda has given you some of that headline, looking out, horizon stuff, but really what we're most focused on from our perspective is 2023, and the plans from water, sewer, storm, general fund, they all work. We were able to make them work and do the project works that Jim and the departments need. I would argue that next year, just like every other year, we'll have to do a lot of figuring out in terms of project prioritization, grants, asking our partners for money, all those things that we talk about. So I don't want to be too alarmist on the red in the out years. That's not unusual for us. I mean, we know, we've said it all along, the needs are always greater than our resources. So the trick is picking each year the top priority projects, and that's what we'll continue to do. So again, red gives you a good indication that we've got work to do, but I also don't want to be overly alarmist. So that's my preamble. Thanks.
Yeah, for the water fund in 2024, like I said, there's not a lot of grants, according to Jim, that are for the water fund. Our ARPA money went mainly to the sewer fund. So if you look at page 34, which is the analysis of
Do
the
you have
sewer.
a question on the previous one?
I have a general question
A general question?
on water. And maybe this would be for Jim. And so these capital improvements, will they be reducing operating costs in any ways? I heard some energy savings potentially, and are these being built more efficiently? And so we might see something a little different than what is predicted?
You might see a little bit of reduction in operating costs from the heat digesters, but it's not significant in relation to some of the concerns that are happening. So like in the water area, the thing to keep in mind the most is that we've got 100 miles of water main. Okay? The average age is over 60 years old. Based on what the industry would tell us is that we should be replacing 1 mile of water main every year. That means once every 100 years we replace it. Currently in the capital plan, we have, in the next 5 years, we have maybe 3/4 of a mile in there for replacement. To put it in perspective, it costs about $1.5 million to replace a mile of water main. So while we have a little bit of reduction from the heat digesters, the real work that needs to be done, part of the work that would need to be done will not save operating costs.
All right. So the reason why we're doing most of these capital improvements is not necessarily to increase efficiencies, it's to avert disaster.
Yes? Yes?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Costly disaster, shall we say.
And I'm drawing a blank on it, but it seems like during the COVID, there was a major repair that was done using federal dollars. I think, right, the FDA had required something of our, maybe I'm thinking of our water
I think our water rec
treatment.
facility.
The water
has-
treatment, not
Yes.
water reclamation.
Actually, it was water reclamation.
reclamation.
Okay.
It was that. It was the primary clarifier, the rotating arm in that 60-foot tank completely failed and broke off, and it was unusable. So I think that one we've repaired, and it was $300,000 or $400,000 to repair that. And that's just the beginning of those at the plant. And yes, the local federal money for the ARPA program has been used to help work on the water rec facility. It's in process right now. So like the final clarifiers that we talked about, that we bid, has $750,000 of local ARPA fund in it. The heat digesters is going to have a significant
Over $5 million.
over $5 million in it.
That's ARPA. So I knew that there
Remind
was.
us all what ARPA is.
The American Rescue Plan Act.
Okay, that's just so everybody knows,
Mhm.
okay?
And being able to use that money saved our residents from having to
Raise rates.
shoulder a lot of that, right? Okay.
Yes.
I was trying to piece it together in my mind as you were talking. Thank you for
No
refreshing
problem.
my
And
memory.
the last thing, it was a really good match because it was one-time money, and these improvements at the water rec facility are once every 50 years. We just happen to be reaching that 50-year cycle here now.
John has a question also.
So a few years back, we were awarded some grant money for our forward thinking that replaced money that we were going to spend to modernize our equipment for energy conservation. So that money's been absorbed, and the savings
Have been accounted for.
from the modernized equipment is where
Yes.
just been absorbed also.
Yes. So that goes back to what Glenn had mentioned, is that all those different funding sources that can be taken, put in towards the water reclamation facility, has allowed us to not raise rates as much in the past and still get those necessary improvements done. There was 3 or 4 projects in a row that had NOPEC energy savings that went to the water reclamation facility in the last 3 or 4 years.
Just keep in mind, it was just a couple of years ago that we were diplomatically not freaking out, trying not to freak out in front of you to say sewer fund is a huge deal. And we didn't know what we were going to do because, I mean, we talk about rates, but we said right here, we can't rate our way out of this one. This is much bigger. We can raise rates, but that's not going to make up a $15 million gap. You know what I mean with rates? You can't. That's absurd. So it was going to have to be borrowing or whatever it was going to be, using general fund savings, whatever. We were pretty stressed. So that was the one silver lining to COVID. All of a sudden, it showed up right on cue with that need that we had, and here was, as Jim said, this one-time money. We actually breathed a sigh of relief, and quite candidly, heading into this budget year, capital plan, I walked into the meeting thinking, oh, thank God we don't have to deal with that again. And I sat down, and it took about 5 minutes before Jim explained, oh, we got to deal with that again. We still have some sewer stuff that needs to be done, and we have water stuff. That's what you're hearing tonight. So, yeah, I mean, it goes back to the fact that we are an aging system, like Jim said. It just, at some point, you got to pay to catch up, and that's kind of, we're at that point, and we'll continue to be as strategic as we can because we know we can't rate our way out of this one. This is too big.
Robin, did you have?
Yeah, I would like to understand the deficit designations on those out years from .24. Does that mean that we're recommending, in looking at those out years, a 12.5% increase in fees to
customers than 35.46%?
No, we're trying
to-
to have at least 25% ratio of our fund balance compared to our operating expenses plus this, debt service. And you'll see in 2023, we're at 53%. With all the expenses, and if we were able to spend the $3 million next year in 2024 on capital, our fund balance would be a negative 12%. So we would not be hitting the maximum or the minimum of 25% fund balance.
So you're talking about, you're looking at the total figure. This is not a designation to our customers on making up that
No.
deficit.
This has nothing to
Okay.
do with.
Nothing to do with rates.
Okay.
And again, we don't even really forecast increases in out years. We just focus on what's next year. So the only discussion we'll have in terms of rate increases, which is more this year, we're recommending 9%, which basically matches inflation. Because the whole utility rate plan was based on every year we need to raise it about 3%, because that's what forever inflation was running. It's not anymore. So we are recommending the 9% for water and sewer this year. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But yeah, we haven't talked about any of the out year rates. That's just you, at the financial professional's advice, you established a reserve fund policy, like how much you want to have in the savings. We don't want to go below 25% if
The
we...
fund balance, right.
Fund balance. And she's just giving you that fair warning that as it stands right now, today, we're going to be, we won't be able to meet our policy.
Yes.
So, but that's not unusual for out years, so keep that in mind. That's why I go back to my preamble.
So,
We don't let ourselves stay in that position. We make sure we can get out of that each year.
so we're looking at financials on that, looking at what we need to do to pull together whatever aggregation that's gonna be. What is the financial plan
Well, most
to
likely,
deal with those?
what most likely will happen in 2024, if you increase the rates, which won't cover the 400,000 anyway, a lot of those capital projects will have to get moved off, and they won't be able to be done, or we have to borrow money, hope for maybe some grants, which is hard to get for the water fund, or they just have to be pushed off, which you see what happens when we push things off.
Well, but in pushing them off, doesn't that increase the likelihood that that will incur even more expense?
Mhm.
We've done it for years like that.
Don't have the money, you don't have the money.
Further, Robin?
No, thank you.
Tracy first, then John.
Yeah, aren't we going to be getting some of that infrastructure bill money too? Pretty down the line here?
I mean, Jim that's what we try to do every year. He's really good at it.
No, I mean,
but I don't know.
because there's actually money put aside now specifically for infrastructure.
Okay, the question was about the infrastructure bill,
Right.
the bipartisan infrastructure law. Okay, the bipartisan infrastructure law, was there a specific question about it or more just in general?
Are we gonna get money
Going
from
for
it?
it.
Yeah, isn't that
Oh.
going to help us pick
We're
up the
working at
slack?
it. We're working at it. So, the way the federal money comes down is divided into formulaic methods. So like certain formula of money comes down to like the state DOT and our MPO, AMATS, the Municipal Planning Organization, and they have certain programs. Some of those programs got increases. So when we say we had money to pave main and water, that program at AMATS got like a 10% bump, not a big bump. So in the future, when we go for money from there, we could get it from that point of view. Besides the formulaic methods, so they also have these individual programs that are doled out from Washington, from FHWA. That's the RAISE grant, RAISE, Infra, Safe Streets for All. They have a whole bunch of them. Okay, so Those that had come through the USDOT are national competitive grants. And they're typically for the largest projects, and they take a significant amount of resources to actually just submit for the grants. We've heard from other people that they've spent upwards of $30,000 just to put the grant request in for some of these. We did one for East Main Street, which we thought, and everybody in the area thought it was very competitive, and we were unsuccessful with that. So that's not to say that there's no chance of success for those. There is. We just have to find the ones where our project fits what they're trying to accomplish. So what's happening now is, for the ones that seem most suited for Kent, okay, Rays is one of them, so we'll submit for that again next year. This Safe Streets for All seems to fit with what you guys want from your streets. It's not just from what's safer for cars, but people who walk and bike and other things. For that one, you have to have a safety plan that's approved before you can submit for this. So AMATS is working on creating a safety plan for the region, which will cover us then, and they just started that. They've graciously asked me to be on the task force, and then we recommended, I think 6 Kent residents are going to be on the stakeholder group to help coming up with it. Some from Kent State, some from locals. Those who've talked to us before about these things, and they've all agreed to participate. So we will get some of the money over time. The more likely ways we will get it will be through the standard programs that got a bump. So I told you AMAT's got STBG, Surface Transportation Block Grant, got a 10% bump. The TASA, Transportation Alternative Set Aside, got like a 60% bump. There's a new one called Carbon Emissions Reduction Program. That's got a couple million a year that they haven't used yet, but we're talking to them about that. The safety program that we use to fund many of our projects through ODOT, they got like a 25 to 30% bump, which was good because they were fairly strapped, but now they seem to be a little more open, which that's what we submitted for safety funds to do the design of 59 east of Horning in the township with PARTA and the Franklin Township. So that's sort of how it's functioning right now, a little bit of everything, and just trying to find what works best.
John, do you want to have something real
Yeah.
quick?
So if we don't have enough money in the fund and we borrow money, we're going to not have enough money plus interest.
That's right.
So this award money that's going to be coming down for the drug companies, is that going to be designated specifically to something besides what we need?
No.
No, most of the drug monies for opioid settlements, they are to be used either in-house, like by our fire, police, health department to deal with drug calls, or I think there's also we could decide to give like grants to like say outside organizations so that they can help treat people with. So it's very specific. It is not infrastructure at all.
So you're not going to be able to borrow it from the fire department and
Not that money, no.
And it's not a lot either. That's the problem.
No,
It
it's
wasn't a
not.
huge settlement. It was like $100,000 or something. I
Over
mean,
18 years.
Over 18 years, so that's not going to buy as much, you know. But just,
Working
can I,
meeting.
just, again, I don't want to, just keep in mind that our 2023 proposed works. And it's great that we're having this conversation about the out years, because that's the beauty of multi-year planning, seriously. It allows you to look ahead. Now, you can be worried, but you don't have to get too stressed. Yeah, we're just giving you that early warning. She marks it in red, but again, we have red every year. And we come back to you, by the time we come back next year, we'll have a plan, getting to Robin's point and some of your others too, we'll have a plan, a financial plan for how to make that year work. And it won't just be on the backs of, we know it can't be on the backs of ratepayers. It'll be multifaceted like we always do. Some grants, partnerships. We're in conversations with our partners right now, looking at projects, maybe not in this utility funds as much, but in the general fund, absolutely, about trying to maybe get some more money out of our partners. So, and what Jim talked about, all those grants, you need to be queued up for that. Like, you need to have a lot of that work done so that you're kind of that shovel-ready concept. And so that's where, again, this multi-year planning, we can kind of look out ahead, and he can start figuring out, okay, this is the project that'll fit best in that, and I can start prepping for that. Sometimes he'll come and we'll start doing some engineering and design work in advance of the project, just so that we're ready to say to ODOT or whoever the agency is, we are shovel ready, we can spend your money, because as he already mentioned, these agencies are under pressure because they haven't spent all the money that they've been allocated. We've had conversations just as recent as yesterday with our state representative here in Ohio. There's a whole bunch of ARPA state money that hasn't been spent yet, and they're going to be dealing with this issue in this current session. How should they allocate that? What can they do with that? So we're, of course, knocking on the door and say, we got some ways you can use it. So I guess just keep in mind, I mean, we can spend as much time as you want talking about the out years, but I didn't want you to get too in the weeds on that yet, because we will do that work for you and come back to you. Remember, the sewer projects were so bad, it was so out of line, that we said we need to come back in 6 months and have a serious conversation about how to solve that, because that was at an even more concerning point than the water fund. We didn't need to do that thanks to ARPA. We're not so naive to think that there's going to be another round between now and then to save the water fund, but we'll figure it out. I mean, we always do, one way or another. It'll be a combination of deferring projects. We sat in a room and we laid out 5 or 6 different strategies to help balance the capital projects, and they're working. They're working, and so anyways, I'm sorry.
Did you have one more question?
I just wanted to I know that the water fund is kind of a specialty service. I can't remember the term for it.
The utility fund?
Yeah, utility fund, but it's because it's supposed to be paid for fully.
Enterprise fund.
An enterprise fund.
An enterprise
that was
fund,
it.
correct. So,
was thinking of
say we get a big grant for transportation funds, and the city was gonna put some money into that, transportation funds, as a match, but that grant, we no longer have to put our money there. Will we be able to move money from a transportation fund to the water fund to offset? Or there's some barriers between those
So
because of the enterprise?
The only fund that can transfer to any fund is the general fund. You can't transfer money from a special revenue fund, which is where the transportation is, to a water fund.
But it would be our money.
It's against the Ohio Revised Code.
Yeah.
You have to get, like, permission, you have to... yeah,
Not the
it's
grant money, but our money.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you're describing is indeed a strategy that we look at. But the challenge there is, I mean, within limitations. So what Rhonda's saying is correct too. I'm not trying to but what I think I'm hearing you say is, outside of those specially designated funds, our general our reserve funds, our undesignated funds that we have, could we basically use some of that to move over there? And we've done that before, and we could do that. The challenge there also is that the general fund has so many needs too, whether it's new fire trucks, new police cruisers. It's not as simple. It's not like those monies, if they don't get spent, have nothing else in their queue. So each fund has its own queue, but that's what we do. That's the beauty of a multi-year plan. We meet with each of the department heads and assess priorities and figure out where we can shift, and we will shift if that gets to that point. We've done that before. We will, as long as it's not a designated fund as Rhonda described.
Yeah, because I know that some things are, let's say, sexier for grant funding than others. And water fund is not so much, so it seems like we would play off our strength.
So the reason why there's a lot of transportation money is the gas tax. That's the main reason why there's a lot of transportation grants available. There's less available for water and sewer. The good and bad thing is, the reason why we're not likely to get water and sewer money is that our problems aren't that bad compared to what they want to give out money to. They're going to give out money to places that are actually having active failures where they're polluting the environment. We're not doing that. We're not there yet. Okay, and we don't want to get there. Sort of same with like the water distribution system. You know, they want to fix areas that actually have known lead issues. We don't have known lead issues. So unfortunately, we're not bad enough to be qualifying for what money they have,
Right.
which is a good thing, and we want to keep it that way.
I know.
One thing to note, as Dave mentioned, that transportation fund or 301 fund, the capital fund, we're already struggling in that fund too, as evidenced by cutting the street program some amount this year. We typically wouldn't do that if we had the available resources in that fund. So for the first time in a long time, we're sort of cutting. We are struggling in water, sewer, and 301, and that's been because of this inflation that hit this last year, and the supply chain issues has caused that. Otherwise, we didn't have that problem in that transportation fund before. And last thing, that you mentioned like projects that are in the plan that have large grant, as we did a large grant. There are no projects in the plan that we're going to do. So like, let's think about State Route 43. We will not do that $5 million job unless we can get grants to help pay for 80% of it. Okay, so there's not like there's a job there that we're going to pay for. Whether we get it or not. If we get it, we do it. If we don't get it, we don't do it.
But it still shows in the plan
But
for
it still
now, which
shows
is,
in the plan
that's that
in an
out year, yeah.
Which is why Dave's right. Don't stress too much about in the out year, because some of that's in there for the planning process, but we know we can't move forward with it unless we get those grants. And like Dave said, we're positioning ourselves for, that's what 59 is with the township, and part of that's what 43 is with Davy Tree and the schools. That's us positioning ourselves to a place where we can then access that money and make it happen.
So you were on page 34, correct?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Trying to get back to you.
So we'll get back, we'll get
Okay.
to
We hear rate increase, and it makes us start questioning.
Yes.
No worries. So the sewer fund, the beginning balance for 2023 is estimated to be $3.2 million. The reason that the sewer fund, and basically Jim has already explained all that, is the reason this fund looks so good through the 5 years is that the needs of the wastewater treatment plant have been removed from this, or have been removed and using the ARPA fund, because we can't put the ARPA fund money into this. We had to create its own fund, so we're taking the project out of this fund and putting it into the ARPA fund. Or it's being paid for with the state ARPA money and other ARPA money from this fund. So this one looks in pretty good condition. Page 35 is the stormwater fund. Beginning balance for 2023 is $1.6 million. The net revenue for this available for capital needs has been going down. However, we feel that we can absorb those decreases. We are not requesting any increases in this fund because we want to focus any increases in the water and sewer funds. And then on page 36, which is the capital plan, this includes the general fund, the street construction maintenance and repair fund, income tax, police fund, fire fund, and that's all combined into this one. Again, what we did for this year in 2023 is the engineering salaries were allocated, partially allocated to the capital fund, allowing more money to be utilized in the utility funds for their projects, and also giving additional money to the general fund for its purposes. The allocated percentage was decreased from 40% down to 30% in 2023. As Jim mentioned earlier, the reduction of, we reduced the street project, the annual street project, so that helps with this fund. And all the departments, we came together and had a meeting, and we had to pretty much remove over $1 million of projects or defer them to, future years, just to get this plan into budget, balance that budget. So thanks to everybody for that, and thanks for Jim for doing a lot of the work and on this book, this capital plan. Any questions?
Further questions?
Do you want me just to remind you, we gave you a rate summary, so the proposed for the water and the sewer, so remember, this goes back to 2011, that's the year you adopted this. And originally, we started off, well, the plan originally called for 4 straight years of 9%, and then dropping down to 3% each year after that. Well, we were able to, again, with our planning and grants, we didn't do 4 straight years of 9, we reduced. As a result of that, even if, I was pleased to see, I mean, I know it sounds ironic to say please, but you never want to propose a rate increase, but when you do, I can say that this 9%, which adds about $4 per month, I think, to the average sewer bill, and 3 and change to the average water bill. Even with that 9% coming in this current year, if you approve it, it's still, the customers, when you approve the plan in 2011, it was first laid out, will be paying less than originally planned. Not by much. You're right at it. You're right at it at this point. That's been a nice message to say each year, that because we didn't do 4 straight 9s across both funds, or we gave some years that we did less, remember, those years compound, right? So over time, if you didn't do the 9% in a given year, you only did 3, well, people save money across time for that. So we actually have spreadsheets that run that data, and that's what's the inside pages of this, and you can see kind of what the rates have been to the average customer bill. So again, that's kind of where we're at, where we're asking your permission to go with a 9% in water and sewer.
That's next year, right?
This year. Heidi?
What's an easy way to say why?
Oh, it's driven, the premise of the entire plan for the out years was tied to inflation. Inflation is running between 8 to 10% right now, and we're right at that. And so we are asking for that just to keep pace with inflation. I mean, that's the driver. It's not to pay, this is not an adjustment to pay for a specific capital need. This is, quite frankly, strictly operational need. That's why we say we can't rate our way into some of those capital projects. It'd be such an enormous rate increase. So we've got to have other strategies for that. This is in response to inflation, and I know even the, it's not Social Security, the allocation just went up to like, is it Social Security?
Social Security.
It just went up like 8 to 9%, and that, not that we want to take that away from people, but I'm just saying, we're just being consistent with what the numbers are across the board for everybody.
Tracy?
Now, are you asking us to approve this rate hike tonight, or is that
No,
another time?
That's enough.
It's built into the plan, so
It'll be at the next meeting.
the next meeting is when your official vote, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, we'll discuss.
As part of the budget process?
part of the budget,
Okay.
Tonight.
Not tonight.
Tonight's just the capital plan.
Capital.
The rate increase would be for
That'll be the
next
7th,
meeting.
right?
December 7th?
Yeah, I think so. So with that, that's it?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Painless.
We need to approve it.
Thank you.
We don't have to vote on that? We need to approve it.
Do we have to approve?
Yeah, we have to approve it.
Do we have to approve this?
In here.
It
I thought we
says,
usually did the cap plan tonight. but-
It
approve
says.
it with emergency clause.
Says approve the,
Wait a minute.
right there.
Yes, you
You need a
did.
motion.
Okay, I need a motion.
With
Right here.
emergency.
I'd move to approve the capital plan.
I'll second that.
With
the
emergency.
I think it's automatic. Questions? Is there anybody in the audience has any questions? Back to council? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you. There we go.
Anybody needs to talk to council under public communication with the regular council meeting has to sign in with the clerk to be notified.
Oh, you're right.
I can't authorize it since
That's right.
I've walked in 1 minute
That's right.
late on the clock.
I know
was
it.
2 minutes
Glad
fast.
you could make it today.
Oh.
I just had to get you there once.
Amy called them today.
I'll second that. Any discussion, all in favor?
I knew it.
And then we've got tonight, which
Thank
is
you,
a
though.
bunch, I think. Yeah, there's
It says
9
cold
items
weather.
tonight.
You like
Patty
when-
was-
I moved to authorize all
I don't know why
nine.
I'm shocked, like it was
This looks all right.
so much longer.
Like,
Yeah, I don't think there's anything surprising in there.
cold
that-
horrible
yeah.
surprise, like.
So second and first, all right, all in favor of those?
Totally
Aye.
unprepared.
Opposed? So
It
carries.
was this little skimpy thing.
We are
It's
adjourned.
a time change, I'm like, okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
You guys need a break before we go into council meeting?
No, I leave work at 6 and it's like, is it midnight?
You need a break?
Yeah, it feels like you're driving home in the middle of the night. I know. I know I get used to it. My brother was in the car to go for a walk.
That's your
every
knee?
day. You have to get out.
Okay, I'm gonna call to order the,
Go out for a
council
walk.
meeting of November the 16th. Would the clerk please read the roll?
Mr. Amrine?
Here.
Mr. De Leon?
Here.
Mr. Ferrara?
Here.
Mr. Kuhar?
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Here.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Here.
Mr. Turner? Ms. Wallach?
Remarks by Mr. Ferrer.
Yes, just two brief comments. First, obviously, we just came off an election, and I would have to say that being an elected official, it's a pleasure to work with everybody on council, and I think we've got a great council here in Kent because we put people above politics and projects above politics. And, for years, Kent and Portage County has been Democratic. And I'm thinking that maybe now is the time to bring the issue up again as a Republican, saying that maybe what we really need in this divisive times is nonpartisan elections. So as we approach our, our charter review, maybe that's time we bring that up again and we get down to not having partisan elections where people now will put projects and people above politics. I think that'd be good for the community. So that's my first comment. My second one is with Thanksgiving coming up, I wish everyone safe travels and good time with family and friends. So, and with that, I would ask everyone to stand if able for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Is it second?
Second.
Second by Gwen. Discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Abstain.
And one abstention. Communications, do we have any public communications?
We do. We have a Mr. Joe Snyder.
Before you go, I have to read a comment here. While the law does not require council to provide time for the public to comment, we have historically invited the public to make comment, and we appreciate your input. This is the time when residents and others can comment on matters that concern them. However, if we will not engage in any debate. As President of Council, I reserve the right to end any public comment that is disruptive, embarrassing, harassing, or otherwise objectionable. We ask that you come to the podium, give your name, your address clearly, and we will allot you 3 minutes. You're up.
My name is Joe Snyder. I live at 482 Needham Avenue, right up by the high school. I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about broadband internet. I know it's something that this might not be a traditional venue to discuss, but having just sat through a lot of discussions around infrastructure funds, perfect opportunity. So there's $42.5 billion allotted from the infrastructure bill to provide for broadband networks to be built. Right now, 26% of Ohioans don't have access to high-speed internet. We saw the effect of that throughout the pandemic with those horrible scenes of kids sitting at the Taco Bell parking lot to do their homework, things like that. We're at a crossroads where, as a city, we can actually put out a request to get those funds approved and this network built, a new network. I'm with CWA. I'm CWA Local 4302 president. I'm also a member of CWA's Broadband Brigade, and I've been doing this for 6 months now, coming and talking to groups to try and get this information out there. So it's a pretty straightforward process. Back in May, Ohio met its filing requirements for those funds to be approved to the state. Now it's on the municipalities to apply for them. So it comes down to putting out a request for proposal. A provider will submit a proposal for that. If it's approved, those funds can come through and that network can be built. And we can get 100% coverage here in Kent so that every citizen has access to it. There's another part of this that isn't covered well in that. It's great that those networks get built and that those funds get used, but how do our citizens afford to access them? So once we have a network up and running, and I have some information for everybody, there's a federal program called the Affordable Connectivity Plan. What that is a qualified subsidy of $30 a month for residential internet, $75 for people that are on qualifying tribal lands. There are many ways to qualify for this. So it's an FCC-funded program. It's all federal. It doesn't have anything to do with money here. So friends, family, people out of state, wherever you're at, get them this information. So what I'm going to leave with everybody is the methods that broadband is delivered, and then a copy of the ACP flyer and my business card. I'd like to help anybody that's interested in any of this navigate their way through it and build our community better. I've been a communications worker for 27 years. I know the kind of jobs this creates in our community because it's why I live here and have a house. And my kids have always had food. So I know if we build this right the first time, it benefits every part of our community. Thank you for your time.
Okay, can you give your information to the clerk, please? Further, Amy?
That's it.
All right, written communications?
Let's see. A liquor license transfer request was received on October 28th from Community Building Strategies LLC, doing business as Battleground, 425 Cherry Street, Kent, to Battleground LLC, doing business as the Battleground Tap Room and Mexican Kitchen at the same address.
Move to return with no objection.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
The agenda and health equity overview materials for the first Kent City Health Equity Task Force meeting was received on October 31st. The agenda and meeting minutes from the November Standing Rock Cemetery Board were received on November 1st, 2022. And then communications received after the agenda was published. I received the minutes for the November 14th City Flag Committee. I received those on November 15th. The Board of Zoning Appeals agenda and staff report for the November 21st meeting was received on November 14th. Parks and Recreation Board packet for November 17th was received November 14th, and then I received a phone call that due to illness, this meeting is going to be rescheduled. I received a second liquor license transfer request for Over Easy LLC, doing business as Over Easy at the Depot at 152 Franklin Avenue, first floor and basement, Kent. I received that today, and Chief Shear had no objections to that one either.
Move to return with no objections.
Second.
Second by Heidi. Who was that, Heidi?
Sure, whatever.
I thought it came from that direction.
Yep.
All right. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
And lastly, the contract for the County Public Defender Service to a municipal corporation between the City of Kent and the Portage County Public Defender's Office was received and forwarded to the Law Department on November 16th, 2022. That's all.
Okay, thank you. City Manager report, Mr. Amor.
Yeah, I'd like to move items 1 through 11 in the city manager's report.
Second.
Second by Gwen. Is there any discussion on any of them? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Further, Mr. Roller?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Going into standing committees, first one's committee on the whole. I need a motion for the minutes of November 2nd.
So moved.
Need a second.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Thank you. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstain, 2 abstentions. All right, then I need a motion for the action.
There was none.
No action.
Oh, you're right. I was to say action recommended.
Can you get it on?
No? All right. Oh, none's on the second
Oh,
page.
sorry.
I'm sorry. You play with us senior citizens. That's it for the committee of the whole. Community Development, Mr. Kuhar.
Yeah, I moved committee meeting minute approval for November 2nd and one action.
Split them up, please.
I'll second the motion. Meetings. I'll special the.
All right, you made the motion,
Please
Mike
split
seconded it?
Split the minutes and
I'll
the
s-
action.
I'll second the minutes.
Are you splitting the minutes and the action?
We're separating them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the understanding of the motion, you just separated them.
Right.
All right, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Abstain.
Abstain.
2 abstentions.
And the one action.
Second.
Second by Mike. Discussion on action. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. We have a draft number 2022-1114, or the 114, sorry.
Draft 2022-114, an ordinance authorizing the transfer of a Trex liquor license into the City of Kent by the Reading Empowered LLC doing business as DP Doe, an Ohio limited liability company, conditioned upon the execution of a development agreement between the City of Kent, Ohio, and Reading Empowered LLC and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferrer. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Okay, resolution ordinance 2022-114 is passed.
That
Okay,
includes community development.
land use, Mr. Ferrer.
We forgot just one action and a draft.
That's the motion?
It was already authorized, right?
It's already been authorized,
Yes, you're right.
Yes, it was.
so it's just one draft.
All right. Will the clerk read draft number 2022-115 in title only?
Draft 2022-115, an ordinance authorizing the filing of a petition with the Board of County Commissioners of Portage County, Ohio, to change the Franklin Township boundary lines in order to remove 174.828 acres of territory from Franklin Township, make the township lines identical with the limits of the City of Kent, Ohio, as a result of removing said territory from the township and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferrer. Call the roll on suspension.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
And Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-115 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Streets and sidewalks, Mr. Sidoti, Ms. Wallach.
I'm going to do it I'm going to move the minutes from the
Second.
November 2nd meeting.
Garrett seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
2 abstentions.
No actions.
All right. Moving on to Finance Committee, Mr.
Oh.
DeLeon.
Move the minutes from November 2nd, 2022.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kuhar. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
And there are 3 actions. I'll move 3 actions.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Any discussion on the actions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, moving into draft, will the clerk read draft number 2022-116 in title only?
Draft 2022-116, a resolution requesting the county auditor to advance any property taxes that have been collected prior to the normal February settlement date from the proceeds of the 2022 tax year collection pursuant to Section 321.34 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Heidi. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar? Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes. Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Gwen.
Nope, me.
Oh, it's Tracy, I'm sorry. Any discussion?
All you women sound alike.
Seeing no discussion, please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
The ordinance 2022-116 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2022-117 in title only?
Draft 2022-117, an ordinance approving and accepting the Portage County Budget Commission's alternative method of apportioning and distributing the local government fund and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
And Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Move
Move
adoption. Second.
Second by Mike. Any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-117 is passed.
Hey, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2022-118 in title only?
Draft 2022-118, an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to prepare an application for SRTS school travel plan development to the Ohio Department of Transportation and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
And Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike.
Forgot, I was reading.
Any discussion on adopting ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-118 is passed.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Is there any unfinished business? New business, anything? Councilmember comments, anything? Mr. Kuhar?
Yeah, I just want to take this time to wish everybody a very good Thanksgiving.
Ditto.
Thank you.
Gwen?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I'm
just-
sorry, Teresa. We'll get
go
you.
on, go on.
Gwen?
I was just going to express my thanks to Scott Brumley for the donation to plant a memorial tree in honor of Lois Orlando. I just want to say it's a lovely gesture, and Lois is a really lovely person, and I'm very sad to hear that she passed. But I think a tree in her honor is a fantastic gift to the city and a nice way for us to remember her. So thank you.
Tracy?
So this is just a little tidbit. Idling your car for 7 seconds uses the same amount of gas as turning your car on. So if you're going to idle for more than 7 seconds, you should turn your car off and then turn it back on when you're ready to go. And that saves gas, which we need to do, saves air pollution, which we need to do.
Newer cars are doing that. There's a
Yeah.
button, you
They're
have
doing
to turn it off.
automatically, Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else? Mayor's report, first of all the celebration. Amy got her CMC, certified municipal clerk, so
Thank you.
she's official, so.
You're allowed to talk to her now?
You are.
No, but you'll have to make an appointment.
So it came in the mail? It came in the mail?
Not yet. It came in an email.
Yeah, I got a letter.
So we
I
have it in
think
writing.
I thought I forwarded it to
They're
you
working
guys.
on the certificate and everything will be forwarded soon, so.
Okay,
Supply chain issues are
That's
probably holding it up.
and today's November 16th, my mom's birthday, so she's my guardian angel, so I gotta say happy birthday to her. She would have been 110. She wouldn't have been here anyhow, but at 110.
You never know.
Yeah. The other thing is, I've been bombarded, and some of you people probably know this, why doesn't Kent have pickleball?
Yes.
Well, you tell me. I've been getting it left and
That's
right,
what I've been asking.
and I've been told to go out to Hudson and look
Yes.
at their courts,
Yep.
and they have nice courts, and there's young people, and there's actually senior citizens playing this pickleball. It looks like it's something between a ping pong table and a tennis court, I think.
Well,
But, wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
My question is, Gwen, has our park board talked about pickleball?
yes, on numerous occasions they have, and they're actually in the process of collecting input from residents. So there was an opportunity for people in the city to attend a meeting, to weigh in on different plans, capital plans for the park going forward, and that's something that some people have brought up, and there's going to be another opportunity. I wasn't expecting to talk about it, so the date escapes me, coming up again to speak with consultants and the Parks and Rec Department to say exactly that you're interested in pickleball and answer some questions and speak with consultants so that the Parks Board can have a directive from the residents about how best to move forward and how the city wants them to spend money and invest.
I don't know how it bloomed all of a sudden. I didn't know what it was a month ago, to tell you the truth.
I brought it up.
And,
I brought it up several times.
and I found out, actually, the senior citizens are doing most of it, and Kent would be justified to do something for the senior citizens with pickleball.
I can ask Angela to forward the email with the date of the next open house meeting with the consultants. That I can forward it to everybody here, and then they can attend, and other people can attend.
Can we write
can
a
all
letter?
attend. What the?
Can we write a letter?
Sure, you can write a letter.
You're our spokesman.
She just spoke.
I spoke. I mean,
We
I don't.
appointed-
I mean, I don't play pickleball. I don't.
Well-
but I can.
I've
I
got the
can
paddle.
express it. But attend, as you know, consultants come in and having an opportunity to answer questions and a little back and forth, a little discussion and dialogue. I think
Take it
goes
back
a
to your
long-
board. It
it goes
seems
a
to
long
be
way.
take it to the board. It seems to be a
No-brainer.
no-brainer. Is that okay? Garrett says it's a no-brainer.
He would know.
Go ahead, Robin. We're actually in the mayor's part.
Yeah, I was wondering, this is the second time I've heard of, yeah, that. What does that require?
It's like
What-
tennis.
Except you use a wiffle ball and
It's a
paddle.
slow-motion tennis game.
It's a very, in my opinion, it's a low capital resource. We could convert tennis courts or what have you.
If you haven't seen
don't
a
have
court,
any tennis courts.
if you go by,
Barlow, is it Barlow Park?
is that Barlow
Barlow
Road?
Road.
Barlow Road, Hudson has all theirs courts there. Very nice. Oh. The other thing, and I echo Mr. Kuhar on everybody having a happy Thanksgiving. It's a time to gather with family and be thankful for what you have. And remember, there's still some people out there that need something, so if you have a little extra, it doesn't hurt to help the needy out. With that, we're adjourned.
She wants us back.